Hi, everyone. It's Adrian Pessel. Today's topic is estimating home values. We're going to discuss the differences between an appraisal, a comparable market analysis, also known as a CMA, and the automated value model. There's a lot of information that we're going to cover today, and it's going to move very fast. You may want to rewatch this or pause it throughout the video. So home values, how is the price determined? Well, the buyer, the seller, and the lenders, they each have their own interest. There are three methods that are used in determining home values. Some are much more accurate than others. So first, let's talk about a CMA. A CMA is done by a licensed real estate agent, and they usually work for the buyer or the seller. The appraisal is done by a licensed state appraisal that works usually for the lender. However, the buyer or the seller will be the one paying for it. The buyer will pay for it if they're purchasing a home. The seller will pay for it if they're doing a refinance. Automated value method, that is when you use a computer-generated platform like Zillow, eProsa, or Trulia. A CMA is usually done prior to listing a home or for a buyer prior to making an offer. An appraisal is required by a bank to get a loan. This is to protect the bank's interest. An automated value system is just something people go online early in the process of selling their home just to get a general idea of what's going on in their community. A CMA is viewing the property and using MLS data. It is a very detailed approach. They use the comparable approach, which is comparing one property to another. An appraisal is again done by viewing the property using the detailed data from MLS. It is more detailed than a CMA. There are usually two different approaches that are done. One is the cost approach, and the other is the comparable approach. An automated value module, all they do is rely on public tax information. There's no details, and it's all averages, and most of the time the information is inaccurate. Now, since you have an idea of the three modes of evaluating a property, let's read what Fannie Mae says what market value actually is. Market value is the most probable price which a property should bring in a competitive and open market under all conditions requisite to a fair sale, the buyer and the seller each acting prudently, knowledgeably, and assuming the price is not affected by any undue stimulus. However, even though we may have a buyer and a seller that agrees upon a price, that buyer is going to be getting a loan. They're not so concerned with what a buyer and a seller agrees upon. They want to be sure that the money that they're investing into that property is going to be safe. So there's an old adage in real estate, he who has the gold rules. So even though that market value is when a buyer and seller, both acting knowledgeably, come to an agreement, it doesn't matter. That's not the same as an appraised value. So in this example here, if we look to the left, this contract where the buyer offered the seller $400,000, they're putting 5% down, which is equivalent to 20 grand. They're going to be borrowing $380,000 from the bank. That's what the sales contract states. However, after the appraisal came back, the property appraised for $390,000. So if the buyer kept the same 5% down, using his down payment would then be $19,500, his loan amount would be $370,500. Therefore, there'll be a deficit of $9,500. The purchaser's down payment will decrease by $500. But the loan amount will have a $9,500 deficit. This is what happens when the sales price doesn't match the appraised value. This is why it's so critical to know how to do a CMA and make sure the values match up that you can support it with the bank. The options when a sales price doesn't match an appraised price are the following. The seller can reduce the price and take a loss. The buyer can pay the difference out of pocket and come up with extra money and hope that they have the $9,500. The parties can negotiate, split the difference, or come up with some type of agreement, or the contract will be declared null and void. And all parties go on their way, and the seller now is left to try to sell their property again, which is now they probably have lost 30 days worth of marketing. What we need to do is make sure this doesn't happen to the best of our ability. There are four primary factors that affect the value of a property. Location. Does it back to a busy road? Does it back to woods? Is it near power lines? Is it close to transportation? The second factor is the time of the sale. We can't use sales from a year ago, or even really 6 months ago. We want to use comps that are immediate within 1 to 3 months. If we start going back further than 3 months, we need to take into account the market conditions would have changed. The next factor is the condition. How well kept is the home? Have they updated appliances, roofs, windows, siding, heating, and air conditioning? Then we want to compare the physical characteristics. And that has to do with how many levels, the bedrooms, the baths, pools, porches, above grade and below grade living. When you compare bedrooms bedrooms to bedrooms or baths to baths. There is a hierarchy in what level these bedrooms or baths are on. So if I'm using a house that has 4 bedrooms up, I'm comparing it with a house that has 4 bedrooms up. And I'm not comparing it to a house that has 3 bedrooms on the upper level and 1 bedroom in the basement. That's going to give you a problem with your appraisal. This is an example of how an AVM miscalculates a property. There are 4 different examples here. One is from First American, Black Knight, Zillow, and ePraisal. You can see their range is from 577 to 705. You never want to rely on an AVM. The information that they use comes directly from the tax records. And how many times have we all checked tax records where a house may have 3 bedrooms, but the tax record says it's only 2? And sellers don't go out of their way to make the tax records accurate because that's going to increase their taxes. So let's talk about how to actually do a CMA. We have our subject property. We usually put that to the left, and then we have our comps. I prefer to use 3 availables, 3 pendings, and 3 to 5 solds. Although appraisers only use solds, but remember, they are doing this to substantiate the value of the house to protect the investor. I'm doing this to get the most money for my seller. And one of the things that we need to look at is to make sure we know what the competition is. So if I end up putting my house on the market and all the properties that are on the market are overpriced and not as valuable as mine and don't show as well, I will get more money for my property. And if I price my property correctly, I could even get myself a multiple offer situation where somebody actually might cross out the appraisal, and then I don't even have to worry about that. There are a lot of different negotiating skills that need to be done when you value a property. But the ultimate test is, are you pricing it where you get the buyers to come in, and that when it goes to contract, can you support your price to an appraiser? So doing your homework is going to be able to make that happen. There are some rules that appraisers use depending on whether it's urban, suburban, or rural. They prefer to be as close as the subject house as they can. However, they will justify them going out of an area and going further than what's normally expected if they find a property that matches the house exactly. They would prefer to find a house that has less adjustments and a little further out than a house that's close by that I have to make 7 and 8 different adjustments, because adjustments be very subjective. Something that's extremely important that real estate agents do that's very different from appraisers, they use the current availables in the price range of their subject house to gauge where are they going to price the house. Because when a buyer goes shopping for a home, they don't look at the solds until they find the house that they want. So if you happen to put your house on the market where all the other houses that are currently available are in the same price range as yours, but not as renovated, your house is going to look better and therefore sell for more money. Or if the opposite is true, you put your house on the market and all the other houses may be just as nice, but maybe the sellers have lived there for a longer period of time and they have a little bit more flexibility in their final sales price. Unfortunately, that's going to affect your price. When estimating a home's value, an agent must go and preview and look at as much property as they can. Not only the properties that are available so they know the competition, but the homes that have sold, you need to drive by and see the surrounding areas. We are in a time where we have these wonderful tools that can make our houses look great. Unfortunately, they don't always show reality. We have enhanced video. We have descriptions that really paint a picture of a beautiful home. You can't rely on just reading the MLS printouts for getting the information. When you get in your car and you actually look at the house, you might see power lines, or maybe it's a townhouse that's right next to where the public trash bins are kept. You want to make sure you take all that into consideration because location, like I said earlier, is so important. Let's talk about an overview, the steps to create a CMA. The first step is you need to search the community, either by subdivision, zip code, or use the map tool. You need to look at the availables, the pendings, the solds, the coming soons, and the expires. Yes, I know expires aren't used in appraisals. However, you need to know what that market is like in that particular area. Is it in a decline declining market or is it not? Choose dates that have been within the last 6 months. This is just for the overview. Once you get a feeling for what the community is doing, and after your initial search, then you go back 3 to 4 months and no more than 4 months. You're going to identify the price range, the average days on the market, the seller concessions. That has a play in what the property is going to sell for. Square footage, the bedrooms, the baths. After you get that, then you're going to start your second search. These are going to be houses that are more like it. 3 bedrooms, all on the same level. Master bedroom has its own bath. The kitchen is an eat-in kitchen. It has a one-car garage. It has a walkout basement. So we're going to try to make sure all our houses, we have more similarities in our subject property with their comparables than we have to subtract and add to it. Once you have your best comps, you're going to locate the tax records for each one of those homes. You're going to identify the information and compare the annual tax assessments to all your comps. And if a red flag shows up, it doesn't mean it's a comp you throw out, but it's something that you need to take the extra step to see if you are on the right track. Then I am going to do my final check by comparing my price that I think my home is worth to homes in another subdivision outside of my area. Every buyer is going to have their priorities. The price range is the top priority for most purchasers. If you decide to price your house between $390 and $400, what else can that buyer get in that price range? Is there new construction that's going on that's only a mile away that could really have a very big impact on the sale of your home? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the AVM values from Zillow and Trulia and see how far off they are. Do they support my numbers? And make sure that I am aware what the public sees, whether it's the buyer or the seller. I need to be aware of the information and be able to support the value of why I feel my house is worth the value that I gave it. I hope this helps you. This is just a general overview. There is a lot of strategy that is used in valuing homes in order to get the seller the top price for their home, so you can support your value to an appraiser and make sure that the transaction doesn't fall apart. If you have any questions, please feel free to make the comments below. Also subscribe. I wish you the best of luck. Come visit me in Fire.